Welcome back to another episode of Talk That Talk. I'm Adriel Ramirez, and in this episode, we are doing a spoiler review of The Watchers, directed by Ishana Shyamalan, making her cinematic directorial debut. Before this, she previously had directed 6 episodes on her dad's TV show, The Servant, which, in my opinion, me and my wife like it. Is a really, really good show on Apple Plus. If you have not watched it, if you have not checked it out yet, I would highly recommend you guys watching it. The Watcher stars Dakota Fanning, Georgina Campbell, and Owen Fuere. The Watchers is based on a book of the same name by A.M. Shine. And with me, as always, I got Mr. Alex Martinez. Alex, before I hand it off to you, sir, I got to say I'm really, really interested to see what you got to say about this movie because I don't want to give too much away for me, but it's a mixed bag. But yeah, sir, so go ahead and take it away with what you like. To start off with what you liked about the movie, then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so movie directorial debut for M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. So we've been doing a lot of like first debuts for some directors this year. So I kind of like this year for movies. As far as this one, I kept that in the back of my head when I was watching the movie, and I want to say the first 3 acts to this movie, if they would have made that just the movie, I feel like I would have said, "Yo, this is a good movie." The fourth act is where it fell short for me. But as far as pros, Dakota Fanning, straight out of Twilight, straight out of what was it, Hide and Seek when she was little. Like she had a lot of up and coming horror films. Twilight's not horror, but you get what I mean. She has a lot of darker roles. I really liked her in this movie. The character development for her as a main character was really, really, really well developed throughout the acts. Like you got a little bit in the beginning where she's disconnecting and she's pretending to be someone else, foreshadowing the movie, and then she has this parrot. I think it's parrot, right?
Yeah, it's a
Parakeet,
pair.
maybe. It's a little parrot that she has tag along with her that ends up speaking and mimicking her, foreshadowing later on in the movie, and it it developed her as a person that doesn't connect well, and then she has this parrot, and then she goes out into this wilderness trying to do a job, and she gets thrown into this mysterious world. And that's what I liked about the trailer so much, because I was like, I don't even know what this movie's going to be about. I just know that people are going to be trapped in a box and things are going to be watching it. And for the first 3 acts, like, we don't know what the Watchers really are, and that mystery about them is what I think drove the movie. Not being able to see them with that little bird box effects, like not being able to see what they're not supposed to be, or what they're being hunted by, whether they're being watched
Yeah.
by the predator, right. So it add that much more climax, and that's what made this a horror film. Act 4 is what made it like more of a sci-fi film, in my opinion, and that's where it fell short for me. But the unknowingness and the mystery behind the Watchers itself, and I liked a lot of the foreshadowing that happened early on, and I liked a lot of the scenes for the side characters. I didn't dive into the side characters a lot until the second time I watched it. I had to watch it a second time because the first time I watched it, I'm gonna be honest, I was at work, and then I got off work, and then I was falling asleep through the movie, so I was zoning in and out. But the second time I watched the movie, I was starting to catch the little things about the characters that played a long role. You saw the attachment with Sierra's character with her husband, and how she's very emotional and very caring, which was gonna be ultimately her downfall in the end. No, well, it's kind of spoilers, but she doesn't die. Don't go worry. And then Daniel's character being impulsive, how he reacts on the go, on the whim, leads a lot of this plot and storyline to go a certain way. And even Madeline's character with her suspicious and her mysterious, she's like the oldest person that's been in this little box that they have been
Yeah.
in, and no one knows whether to trust her, but trusting her so far has kept them alive, but it hasn't gotten them out. And now you have this newcomer in Dakota Fanny's character Mina that comes in and challenges that security versus freedom. So, would you rather be trapped in the box, or would you rather get out of here? What gives you the best chance of doing this? And you see the conflicting personalities of being trapped, the mind games of the forest that's playing on them. Oh, and that opening scene too. Not to ramble on, but that opening scene of it kind of reminded me of like Game of Thrones episode 1 with the White Walkers. That scene where like they're running in the woods, and it's very intense in that opening scene. It lets you know there's a threat out there, and then sure enough, that character John plays an important role throughout the acts. And yeah, I don't mean to ramble on. I'll probably come up with something else in a bit, but I want to get your take on it as well. What do you think was the pros of this movie?
So for me, you were kind of mentioning it already. Great concept. I really like the suspenseful moments that this movie really like was able to produce, especially like you said when we first were introduced to the Watchers. Like you said, just that eeriness about it. Like okay, you know that there's something there, but you can't quite put your finger on it. And then again later on, I even still like the concept of when they introduced them later on about there being fairies. I think that whole concept I think was really really cool. Like I can't maybe I'm missing a movie, but I can't think of the last time I think I've heard or have seen a fairies used in this way. Especially like with them putting that spin on it of them being like evil or like vicious because of how they used to live side by side with the humans, but then the humans locked them
Yeah.
away, so now they're just trying to get back to humanity. I don't know if this is a pro or con or how people if people will see this as a con, but the runtime I felt like for being an hour and 42 minutes long, I feel like that helps out with a story like this because you can't. This is not something you really want to drag out. It's not a
Yeah.
long watch at all. I feel like it gives it that little bit of that rewatchability factor. And then Mina or
Yeah.
Dakota Fanning, I feel like I don't know. I think when she gets lost in the woods, at that point in time, the movie kind of keeps going. I felt like it moved really well up until that last act, like you said. I felt like once she gets there, or I guess even a little bit before that, I feel like it's just, the movie kind of once the ball gets rolling, it keeps going. I thought the acting was really well, kind of like what you said. Like I don't think there was any really overacting by anybody, or even you can't really like tell that
Yeah.
there was anybody that was really like phoning it in at all. Dakota
Yeah.
Fanning did really good. She shined really well. Like I said, being able to basically talk to a parrot or just playing two people. I felt
Yeah.
like she shined really well in this one. And then overall, just the story. The story was really good. Having not read the book, I'm not sure if a lot of it was cut out or not. For if
Yeah.
anything was really left out of the story, but I thought it was a pretty easy to understand concept of like the movie's centered around four people that get stuck in the woods. They're stuck in this cabin. They're being watched by somebody, something. Later on,
Yeah.
kind of as they're getting, staying in this place, they come to find out, what it is, who they are, that, they're fairies. They're watching them because ultimately they're trying to mimic who they are so they can, take over their appearance because they're shapeshifters so they can go back and try to live in society. Like I said, overall, I think the story I think the story was tight knit, but I think, like you said, overall in the end, which we'll get to when we get to the cons, the ending kind of really spoiled this movie more so than what I think it should have.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything else you want to add before you go over to the cons?
Just one specific scene of when they took the items out of the burrows and now they're hiding and then like they're trying to get inside of the little box. The Watchers are trying to like get into this to get the humans and they're trying to trick them using John, husband. And I was like, what would you do in that situation? Like, if you being a married man, I'm more curious on your mindset. Like, if you heard your wife, like, I understand we got to think logically that she's probably dead in this situation. If she was stuck, she went outside and she stayed outside, no matter how brave or how much faith you have in your wife.
Yeah, I think
Are you opening that door? What's going on in your mind in that mindset? And I feel like they delivered that perfectly because it's like on instinct and on that craziness factor of being trapped. Like you're like, oh, that's my significant other. I'm gonna go save them. But then the scene of like, okay, what's my favorite book? It's
yeah,
like you asking her, what's my favorite movie?
yeah.
Like,
I feel like I think I would have had to have handled it the way they portrayed it in the movie, only because
yeah,
like I said, logically you want to think of it as like, okay, this is a typical scary movie trope of the killer trying to use something against you to let them in or to be able to get you right. So I feel like logically I wouldn't be able to open the door, but emotionally I don't know if I would have been able to keep that calm or keep calm, knowing like there may be even if it's just a 1% chance, that 1% chance that it really could be her. So I don't know, it's tough, but I think
yeah,
that going about it the way that they did in the movie I think was perfect, and I think it's hard to argue that if you put yourself in her shoes at any point in time, I don't think there's anybody that would have been like, nah, there's no way that scene isn't realistic. I would not have handled it that way because I think that was perfect of them asking like, oh, we know, ask him a question only he would know, So I felt like that's the
yeah.
best route that you would have to go.
Okay, and then also the plot twist at the end. That was like a pro con for me. It was a really good plot twist. It didn't like change the aspect of the movie and it didn't hide in the movie, but it was a good one that played a role in the movie. It just what they kept going further after the plot twist. If they would have just did the plot twist and then like a jump scare or something at the end, I would have been fine with that. But the lead up to the plot twist, when you watch it the second time, it's like you catch her saying, "Hey, I saw a watcher that looked at me like me when I was stuck outside,
Mhm.
but one of the rules is don't be outside after night." So how did she see someone like that? You get me?
Yeah.
And then just the mere aspect of her surviving, and then it leads on to the professor being trapped in there with someone, and no one could trust this person, Madeline. And I'm all like, I'm throughout the movie, I'm starting to get that suspicion before they make the big reveal. I'm like, I think she's a watcher. Like the whole time, like I'm like, I think she's one of the watchers, and she's like trying to play that I'm protecting you guys thing, but she's literally trying to trick them and lead into something, which ultimately in the end she was doing. But yeah, that little plot twist was really good as far as a pro, and I'll get more into why it's a con later. But I thought that little flip was a good element in this movie and this storyline altogether.
Yeah, so I'm glad you kind of brought that up because, like, all right, we're just getting to the cons. That way, I don't have to like go back and forth with it. But yeah, I do agree with everything you just
Yeah,
said. So go ahead, Alex. I'll let you go ahead and
yeah.
dive right into the cons.
The cons I really have with this movie was mainly the fourth act. Everything leading up to it was pretty good. Like it's a short film, so it's like rewatchability, like you said. And I just felt like they were like, "Oh, this is only like an hour movie so far. We need to like milk something in this fourth act." So that reveal of Madeline being a watcher at the end, the professor trying to remake his wife come back to life and all that stuff, finding out their fairies, finding out the whole storyline of the watchers, and they're trying to get out. That third act of them getting out and Daniel trying to save John at the end and ended up dying the same way he kills crows, getting his neck snapped and getting trapped right there was really good. And if they would have like ended it off of Mina going to the professor's thing and then revealing that, and then somewhere in the distant area, Madeline's transformed into someone or her eyes act up, that would have been a good ending for me. Like if they would have just ended it like the big reveal that Madeline's the Watcher, it would have been good. But then they went into this whole fourth act with, well, the continuous of that fourth act with Sierra, Madeline, and Mina in a whole attack scene, and I'm like, dude, this isn't working for me.
Yeah.
This whole shape shifting thing, this whole is she gonna kill you? Is she not? She decides not to kill you because she finds out she's part human, and it just made no sense for her to like do this whole plan and be this whole evil person that tricked them and not trust humans to just say, "Oh, I'm part of you guys too. Oh, I'm not gonna kill you then. I'm gonna go find someone else." And then she becomes like a super stalker for no reason. I thought she was gonna go find people like
Yeah.
her. You're not gonna find people like you just stalking the same person. So that little like the continuance of the fourth act. If they would have ended the fourth act with just, "Oh, we found that Madeline's the Watcher," it would have been good. But what was another thing? I heard that in the book, the bird played a bigger role and it was more metaphoric and it had a lot more build up, but it didn't do it for me in the movie. Like I was like, you could have literally took this bird out of the equation, um and it would have been a good movie. And also the fact that the bird knew how to get out of the forest,
Yeah.
I was like, this bird is like a pet store bird. And I'm all for natural instincts kicking in when it needs to, but it just like, I don't think this bird has ever seen a forest before, and you're just letting it out and saying you're gonna lead us out of here, and it just somehow led
Yeah.
them
The
to
whole time.
so that was one that I was like, it's kind of like Bird Box, but Bird Box did it better. And yeah, I think those are my main ones. Do you have any cons?
Yeah. So I feel like we have a lot of the same things because, like I said, that whole last act, to bring in, a comic book reference, if I may, when they started talking to her, like you said, when they found out she was human and everything, I felt like that them being human connection was the same connection that Batman and Superman got versus in Batman v Superman when he was like, Mark,
Why?
why'd you say that name?
Why'd you say that
Yeah,
name?
so then she's like, then she's like crying, crumbling and getting down. I'm just like, what is going on right now? Like, you had such a good movie, and then because she's, half human, and then they even referred to her in that little diary where it's like she's the day walker. I'm like, okay, Blade, come on now. Like, what the heck is going on
Yeah.
here? I felt like that part was really, I don't know, I just didn't like it. I felt like the whole movie, when they escaped the forest and they got onto the bus, I thought that was the ending right there, and felt like that would have been a good ending,
Yeah.
just them escaping. But then going into this movie, I thought M Night Shyamalan was the one that was directing it. So when they got on the bus, and for me,
Yeah.
it felt like it was ending. I was like, wait, where's his twist? Like he always has a twist in his movie.
Yeah, at the
What
end.
the heck is going
Yeah.
on? This can't be the end. And then I still got like an eerie feeling before because I think they did a good job, at least for me on my, because I've only watched it once. During the whole thing, I didn't suspect Madeline at all. So I thought when they got on to the bus, I thought either the bus was gonna get stuck and they were gonna end up right back in the woods anyways, or
Yeah.
that the ferries switched and everyone on there was a ferry. So I was like, damn, like this, like I was
Yeah.
waiting for the twist, and I was like, okay, maybe even the guy that when she told her to turn up the radio, I was like, oh, he's one of them. He's one of them. Like, watch out. Like, don't get close to this dude. But then nothing. They went, and then this goes on to my next point of like, I felt that every movie does this where they either have someone do some exposition where they're like explaining the story, but that usually takes place somewhere
Yeah.
early in the movie or somewhere in the middle of the first two acts. So I felt like they waited until
Yeah.
the last act, or maybe like the end of that third act and going into that fourth act, where they waited until they got to the bunker. That professor had videos explaining everything, and then even after they get out of the woods, Dakota Fanning, she goes to his old office, which they for some reason keep intact the way it was for when he left, however many years ago that was. And then she happens to
Yeah.
stumble onto papers that explain all of Madeline's like lineage about how humans and fairies used to coexist, and then sometimes humans used to mate with fairies, and then there was this one baby who was
Hmm.
born who was a half breed, and it just so happened to be her. And I was like, give us an opportunity as an audience to be like, okay, we heard this in the beginning of the film. Let us kind of forget and try to
Yeah.
make those connections as the movie goes, instead
Yeah.
of just being like slapping you in the face with it and like, hey, someone's a half breed. Fairies used to mate with humans. Who could it be? This person can be out in the daylight. Who can it be? And then when she go to go to the other girl's house, and then it happens to be Madeline, who's shapeshifted into her. So I felt like they just completely botched that whole ending. I felt like even though when they got on the bus, I felt like it was the end and I wanted a little more. I felt like it was still a satisfying
Yeah.
conclusion. Like, okay, this person,
Yeah.
Dakota Fanning, when, like you said, her whole character arc was already all the way done. She was, you know, bitter, going out, sleeping with random people, not really trusting, blaming
Yeah.
herself for her mom's death and not talking to her sister and
Yeah.
everything else. And then she really goes through her whole arc, and the movie could have ended. I'd have been like, okay, could have been a little bit more, but I liked it. But then I felt like how you said that, they're like,
Yeah.
oh wait, this movie's barely an hour. We got to tack on something else. It can't be this short. And
Yeah.
they just do that whole ending in there, and like I said, it was Batman and Superman all over again. Why'd you say that name? I was like,
Yeah.
bro,
Yeah.
what the heck?
Just just to piggyback on your comment about over exposition and over iterating during like the third act or like the remaining acts, it's overkill. And they sad
Mhm.
to say they did this in Godzilla X Kong. In the end, where they talk about Mothra, the chosen daughter, all that stuff, like they basically give us the plot of the story for the rest of it. It's like, let us watch the movie. Don't tell us the movie. Well, let us watch it. And then I don't know why this movie has a sour taste in my mouth because Madam Web, when she goes through her mom's notes and finds out her powers, and then she goes to the where her mom gave birth to her and died. Like then we get more exposition. I'm like, I get it. You got to move the story along. The transition has to be there, but it's like you're annoying the hell out of me doing this mid movie when you could just show me the movie and I will understand.
Yeah,
I'm there. You don't need to give me every play by play to get to that hour 42 minutes movie. Like just
yeah,
literally just give me like a soft reveal and then I'll assume something at the end. And then just to hop on the bus scene, the twist I thought was gonna happen once I was like, oh, they made it. They're out of here. They're safe. It's the ending of a Modern Warfare campaign. They made it out of the zombies. Like I think it's the end. And what I thought was gonna happen was like the radio was gonna get all staticky or something when they turned it up,
mhm.
and that I thought that was gonna be the twist, and then the movie was gonna end there. And I was like, oh, I guess she wasn't a changeling. But then they end up having her being a fairy, and then they go prolong it. Like I said, I was like, oh, so that's the big reveal. That's the twist, and they're gonna end it. And then they continue to go on and go
Yeah,
on and go on. I was like, oh
it
my
was just
god.
unnecessary.
Yeah, and then I think the whole professor scene too, like I was like, it ties in with the over explaining stuff. Like you could have showed like the first clip of that and his final clip. You didn't have to show like 4 or 5 clips of him talking.
Yeah, we understood.
Um
Yeah,
yeah. And then yeah, it just that fourth act, third end of third, beginning of fourth, like they could have altered that a bit better, but I think they were just trying to make a longer movie to fit slot times and all that stuff.
yeah. It was. I don't know. It was. I enjoyed it, but like I said, it just fell out its face at the end. Um, do you have any final
True.
thoughts before we rate this movie?
Final thoughts, I will say this movie's rewatchable for me. I can't really put it in a horror aspect. Like I don't really think of this as a horror film in my opinion. There was a couple jump scares and there's fairy monsters, whatever you want to say, but it felt more like a sci-fi film. It kind of felt like I was watching like a thriller mixed with like a sci-fi movie. So it wasn't really a horror film in aspect because there wasn't really any major killing that happened on screen. Like even the head snap was off screen. The dragging them down into the burrow was a different scene. There wasn't really much horror going on in this film. It was just really suspenseful for the most part. So that's why I feel like if I for a first movie director debut, I thought it was a good movie, but I don't put it up there in horror class movies,
Yeah,
especially not this year.
yeah. So the last thing I think I will say before we rate it is that I feel that again, not having read the book, so I don't know how much more information there really is left out there. But I felt like with how
True.
short this movie is, you could have dug into like in more background or more about the bird or more whatever. Just turn it into a series. Turn it into like a 6 episode, 7 episode series, and go a little more, and you probably get the same runtime. And that way we can maybe if you leave one of the episodes on a cliffhanger of me of her being with the half breed or the changeling, maybe it'll stick harder.
Yeah,
So I felt like this is especially with the way with her experience as being on TV shows already. I felt like
yeah.
you probably could have worked better that way. So with all that being said, sir, let's go ahead and jump into the ratings. What do you rate this movie?
I want to give it. It's because it wasn't a bad movie, honestly. I think I'll give it like a 6.7 because I don't give it that second mark because 7 is like a good movie. I just don't think it was bad. It's nowhere near a 5. It's nowhere near a 6 to me. It's above 6, but that ending fell short for me. But everything about it, the cinematography, the darkness of the woods, the eeriness of the changelings, it just fell short at the end, and that's no fault to the director per se, but it's more of like how the plot went and how they use material from the book. Like we haven't read the book. I guess we're gonna have to read books for some of these movies. We have to compare them to the book. But we all know in the history of books made into movies, the book is always better than the movie. So it's never gonna be hand in hand. But yeah, 6.7. What about you, man?
For me, again, I think she did a really good job in her first movie. There were a couple things that probably would if she would have just changed a couple things, the ending probably could have stuck a little better, and maybe made this movie stand out a little more. Because you're right, this movie isn't bad. I feel like the first 3 acts of this movie were solid, very good
Yeah,
character development. Like I said, you see Dakota Fanning's arc the whole way through. The side characters
yeah,
were I think, pretty well developed, even though like Daniel, I
yeah,
guess, kind of is like a throw. I don't want to say throwaway because he has some meaningful moments, but like he's the one that ends up dying.
yeah,
I think everyone, did their job, even somewhat to the professor. Again, they could have did that a little better, but he served a purpose. It started out
yeah,
strong, fell really short at the end. I enjoyed it. There's no way a bad movie, but for me, I'm gonna have to give it like a 6.5. So again, we're kind of right in the same ballpark. Yeah, so
yeah,
like I said, if it would have stuck that landing, it probably for sure would have been on the upper end of the movies for this year. But yeah, just the ending thing is what knocked it down a lot further for me because I like it a lot. I even took my daughter.
yeah,
She was actually the one that wanted to watch this. So when I took her, she was enjoying it. She told me she liked it. So it's not a bad movie. It just didn't stick on a couple
yeah.
things.
For the most part, outside of tobacco, it's pretty kid friendly. Like it's
Yeah,
not the worst. It's not the worst movie to take your kid to, and it's not the scariest movie. So your kid's not gonna have nightmares from this movie. I'm gonna be honest.
yeah. So
Um,
she didn't say that she had
unless
nightmares,
like
but there were a couple times that I think, like you said, when they brought the stuff back from the burrow and they started like when they broke the glass, I think that got her like to jump and like cover her
yeah,
eyes. So like there was a couple of things that got
yeah,
her as a kid that kind of got her
yeah.
to get scared a little bit, but overall she said she enjoyed it. So it was good.
I will say this. I forgot to mention this that when Daniel locks him out on the outside, I was like that got me on like back into the movie. That's why I think the movie in that third act really got me intrigued because I was like, okay, what's going on? We're getting some action now. And that whole scene where they're all coming out, crawling out, and I'm like, yo, this is dope. Like the introduction of like seeing them. But yeah, like it was decent. I'm glad you took. I probably should have took my niece. I ended up just going by myself the second time around. The first time I was with someone, but I was like this, but like trying to watch it still. And not that it was a boring movie. It just I work a lot of hours, guys. But we're here. We're committed. We're trying to watch and deliver reviews.
Yeah. All right, sir. So for us, I think that's gonna wrap it up. So thank you guys for joining us in another video. I'm Adriel Ramirez. That's Alex Martinez, and this is Talk That Talk. And we'll see you guys in the next one.